Hi everybody, and welcome to another video with Nicky Schuller. Welcome, and I'm very happy to have you here again.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me again, Monika.
You're welcome. And today's topic should be about the courage. And of course, as every time we are curious where it's leading us, but we are in a very transformational phase in every one of us and globally. And if we want to change something, we need courage. And we can build up the courage, or we can take everything away which prevents us from being courageous. That's just as a start. Nicky, do you have situations where you remember where you were at some point where you realized that something is not good in your life anymore, or you want to change something, and maybe you needed to take that first step and be very courageous? Yeah, maybe do you have an inspirational story which can help us, or which can help other people to remember courage in themselves?
Yeah, well, over and over again, this has been a 14-year process for me, like consciously 14 years. And I see it over and over again. Our universe asks us to take those leaps, those leaps in faith. And the more we follow our heart's path, the more, we get used to them, kind of, but they still do take courage, because it's like, I can say two. One of the biggest ones in the beginning of my journey was, I was still working at the law firm back then. That was my source of income. And I was deeply unhappy. Like I was depressed and deeply unhappy. And I had started my journey with a lot of EFT, a lot of emotional freedom technique, just tapping my way through, clearing all of these old programs, blockages, all of that. And I after a while, I realized that I wanted to coach, that, coaching was my service work. And so I hadn't built it up yet, just a teeny tiny bit. And I had this income from from the law firm. And I stood there and I'm like, well, I know what I need to do, right? And I'm just so deeply unhappy here. It feels like that deep unhappiness, that unaligned place. I mean, they were great. They were nice people. Don't get me wrong. Like, they were nice people, and it was a secure income and all of that. But what didn't resonate with me anymore. It was just, I felt awful being there, right? It just, because it was so the opposite of what I was vibrating, right? What my frequency was, what I was feeling. And so, yeah, I decided to quit my job.
And what was that? Was it a moment where you really felt that, or was it a process? So you started feeling not well, and how was it for you? Because some people, they maybe don't know how we can feel to have that moment where we know what to do, or maybe the pressure from the outside, or the unhappiness is so big that we just do it. So if you can go a bit deeper into that.
Yeah. I feel it's a bit of both. One was realizing something was wrong and starting to change things inside of me.
Okay.
Right? Starting to look at that unhappiness, that frequency, those feelings that were there. And then starting from the inside out to look at my life, right? So first inside, clearing things, and then looking at my outside world and realizing the outside world wasn't reflecting anymore my inner.
Yes.
And then, it was that moment. It was definitely at one point a moment. I was just like, I gotta leave here. Like, this is just so wrong for me. I gotta do it. And then taking that courage to just quit, right? And just be like, I don't have anything lined up. And I'm not saying this is everybody's journey, right? But it was for me back then, right? And it was just that taking that courage, trusting my inner feeling, my gut feeling, and just being like, yes, I'm leaving it all behind me, right? In that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I do feel it has to be done with our heart. It can't be done with our head.
Yes.
Right. It's not like this is, I can't hand you a how to do it.
Yes.
It is going inward and listening and following. And I do believe, like later down the road, I took on, like this is a couple of years later, because I had gone to the States, I had gone to Canada, and then I returned back to Switzerland. And then I stood there and I didn't have anything, like I had to rebuild everything. And at one point, I just realized it was too much of a struggle later on, like in the sense of everything got really difficult somehow. So I ended up taking on a part-time job again, like in the normal world. So like that I had a source of income.
Okay.
Then I kind of did it a little bit more gradually the second time around.
Okay.
If you want it. In the end, it was again a leap of faith. And then it took me but anyway, so yeah. But I do believe, like, I mean, just looking back at the last 14 years, it's over and over again. It's taking, sometimes you also shift in your business, right? Maybe you're more focused on, like for years, I was more focused on like yoga workshops, like heart opening seminars and retreats. And then I went fully back into coaching, energy work, deep consciousness work, offering one-on-ones. And even that switch, right? Because not necessarily people from yoga want to come to a deep conscious session, right? Because they want to do yoga. Maybe they're more into the physical stuff. So even that switch again took another leap of faith of being like, okay, I'm going to hand over all of my yoga classes and then go fully into giving sessions, giving one-on-ones and assisting people that way, going much, much deeper into their own work, their own process. So yeah, again, I feel like it over and over again, it takes courage.
Yes, and as you said in your example, it's sometimes we have to leave the old thing behind, completely behind. Yeah. Because if you hold on to something, or if we think, yeah, the new thing will come and I do a little bit on the old one, it's still possible to do two things on the same time. For me, it was as well. I completely left everything behind and I started something completely new. And I wouldn't have thought 2 years ago where I'm now. And that's also the thing, if we follow our heart. And you started with yoga classes and retreats and whatever, but probably you as Nicky didn't really knew at that time where it would lead you, but your soul had a certain idea, or maybe even a package of what you would expect then. But that's something to follow the heart, and the heart doesn't go straight line. That's the mind, that's the ego who thinks, I want to be there in 5 years. But the heart is just go with the flow. And still it takes, the courage to change something, to decide, I want to do this and not that. It takes courage. And do you have other situations, maybe more little situations, and still every situation is valuable, where maybe you were unsure, or you thought, should I do this or should I do that? And what did help you to really take that step into the direction you eventually went?
Well, for me nowadays, like it's actually interesting. People say, the ego's so loud and your heart or your universe is a very quiet voice, and you got to, go inward and listen. Mm-hmm. That's true for the beginning. But down the road, the quiet voice stops being quiet. Like if
it wants to be heard.
It does. Like if you're not listening to it, and then the universe will be like, it'll start, kind of like slamming you with a 2x4 over your head. Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it'll start to be, because you've established it so strongly. And it's all over. Like the moment I do something without listening, the moment it's not aligned, and I like using the word aligned because it's different to feel right and not right, or good or bad, because good or bad would put us back into polarity, back into duality, right? And by going from the third to the fifth and higher dimensions, we step out of duality. We don't want to reinforce duality anymore, right? But it does. I mean, it feels icky. If you're doing something that isn't aligned, it feels icky, right? It's not the best feeling ever. And then, so if I start doing something that's not aligned, because I didn't listen, I just forgot to listen, take the time to listen, or I just didn't, it will be, in the beginning, it'll be like, it'll be like walking through sludge, like heaviness. And then things will start to happen, not necessarily maybe in the outside world, but usually it'll be more energetics. It'll be for me more like feeling like pretty horrible. Versus if I listen, it flows, it feels nice, it feels good, and it feels, all of that stuff. And I even have a small example, right? I've been giving sessions since years I have a therapy room at home up in East Lisberg, and I've been giving therapy sessions from here since years. It can be in person, online, whatever. And of course, I have retreats, and the seminars and ceremonies are different places also in Zurich. And my universe was like, you got to go back to Zurich. And I'm like, well, I don't feel like going back to Zurich. Like, it's really loud for me. And I can feel the stress level there, versus here, it's all so peaceful and calm and quiet. And I was like, no, you got to go back to Zurich. And I'm like, oh, so I'm stomping my feet. I don't want to. And then the interesting part was like, my universe came in. And of course, going back to Zurich, aside from from the physicality of it, again, like more noise, more people, more everything. It's also, of course, having something additionally, it's also a financial commitment, right? Like renting something aside from, additionally. But then I ended up, because I was in Silent Power already, giving the seminars and everything and the ceremonies. And then I was there, and it got, the voice got really loud. So I contacted the owner, well, of course, as well. And then she was right away, oh yeah, we have a space open. You can have the room once a week. Right. And everything ended up lining up right away. And even like the money never was like, I don't necessarily think of money. Right. But the moment I committed to it, it was just, it comes in, it comes out. Right. It's just, it flows. Right. So that was another step. And then the first moment in Zurich again was like, okay. But nowadays it's just like my space. It feels very calm and quiet when I'm there and all of that stuff. Those are like the little nudges. Right. And the little things that end up happening after a while, that also, I mean, they do take courage, right?
Yes, and it's a nice example also, as you said, if your soul or the universe is calling to go somewhere or to do something, and you think, and suddenly you realize why it's actually good. Doesn't mean that it's good for the rest of your life, but for a certain time, maybe you even need to learn something there. I mean, just generally spoken, sometimes the universe brings us to a certain place or to a certain person, and it's in order for us to learn something. So maybe it's not so pleasant always, but it's in order for us to learn, and then when we have learned it, we can go a step further. But it's still in order to grow. It's not as a punishment. It's like you need, or it's an invitation from the universe, as you said. It's not that we need to go, but it's an invitation. The soul or the universe says, we invite you to go there, and it's like a calling, and we go there. And maybe it's nice, maybe it's something we need to learn. We can only learn at a certain place, and that's to accept it. And the nice thing is also to realize when this chapter, I call it chapter, when is this chapter over and when can we move on? Because we have some chapters in our life, like different streets we take in different directions, and sometimes it's like I felt also I close a chapter and another one can open.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, you know, we kind of want to maybe put it back into a box, right? Or understand it, but it's not comprehensible for our brain. Like this whole process is not guided by the brain, right? It's by the heart, and the heart functions differently. And the heart versus the brain versus our, you know, it sees past, present, and future. Our heart is capable to see all of the connections, to see it all. Our head isn't. So, and in the beginning, our universe, you know, wants to see if we follow guidance, right? Yes. So it'll be like even just, and I actually have a really cool story that just came to me. Anyway, and it'll see like, maybe even you're walking somewhere, or you're driving somewhere, and it'll be like, go, like maybe you're going home, right? And this is your, you have your normal path, you always go home. And then you come to an intersection and your heart is like, take a right. And you're like, no, my way home is left. But your heart's like, take a right. And you're like, but it's important to listen, right? And maybe in the beginning, it's just the universe testing it out, right? Will you listen to your heart? Will you follow that path that I'm telling you? And you won't understand why. Again, if it's just testing you, it's just testing you. And later on down the road, like once I had gotten a nudge, you know, to go, you know, to go to the store right now. I was in the middle of working. I was in the middle of doing things. And I was like, go to the store. And I'm like, I don't need to go to the store. Like, why are you telling me? But no, I had to. And then in the end, I ended up meeting somebody there that was important to meet, right? For something else down the road. Or maybe you just even meet a client, or maybe you meet whatever it may be, right? And it's so important to listen to those nudges, to follow up on them, because the universe knows what it's doing, even if it doesn't make sense for our head. Like you said before, I could have never envisioned myself, even just 8 years ago, where I would stand today and what I would be doing. If I would have done it with my head and put it together, what I do nowadays would have not, I was not capable of even imagining this, right?
And that's maybe for some people a bit difficult to understand, because yes, we have free will, but our essence is soul, and the soul knows the past, or our spirit team knows the past. And we get to some points where we can decide, but if we decide from free will, and it's not like wrong in the sense of at the end nobody judges us, but we decide which way we want to go. And maybe we do a little loop, and we could have gone the first time on the right direction, not saying that the loop was wrong. Everything is completely as it should be, because we decided it, and otherwise we would have decided differently. And still, I'd say that it's important sometimes when we take a decision and we realize, it feels a bit off, to have the courage also to say, okay, I know I made a decision, but I want to quit it, or I want to change the situation, or I can, whatever. I like to have like a view on a way, and we can take a curve and go right instead of straight, and so on. We still have the power when something is maybe a little bit off to change something. And that's also to have the courage and not thinking, oh, I decided, now I have to follow it till the end. No, we can always change something. And sometimes it's people are afraid of the future because they don't know what will expect them. They're probably afraid of disappointing other people, of not being successful. But if we hold ourselves back in order not to disappoint other people, we are unhappy ourselves. And it's not about that. It's about being happy, or it's about it's about doing what we feel it's right for us and not for other people.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, so much I could say.
Yes,
such a huge subject. I mean, that's like, I mean, setting those boundaries and learning. I mean, so many people do things to not disappoint other people, right? And generally speaking, if the biggest service you can do to anybody and to everybody on this planet is to listen and do what feels aligned, what feels right. Because only then will you vibrate on your highest point, and only then will you bring all the light in that you can bring in. And even if somebody is disappointed, right?
Well, it can happen, yes.
It can happen, but not only that, if you're following, you know, this is it's a thing that one of my friends once said to me years ago. And it was, you know, imagine the whole, you were working, right, the whole day, and you're really tired, and the whole day all you wanted to do was go home and take a bath, and you're looking forward to going home, taking a bath, and just relaxing. And then on your way home or wherever, just right before you're like at your bath, you know, you get a call from one of your best friends telling you he or she or they broke up with, you know, the partner, and that they needed you to come right away, and that they wanted to go, you know, for a drink with you at a bar. And even though you're hearing this and you want to be there for your friend, your inner self is telling you, you need to go take that bath. It's so important for you to stay here and you know, go to the bath. So many people would not listen to that inner voice and go out because they want to be there for their friend, right?
Yes.
But again, if your inner self is telling you, you need that bath, you need to be here. Again, our heart knows the overall. It knows what's supposed to be. It knows the easiest way. It knows, you know, what's aligned. So what if you stay home, your friend would realize, you know, it was a stupid fight that they had with their partner, you know, they made a mistake. They go back, they make up, and a year later they're married. What if they actually, or another scenario, what if they end up going alone to a bar, all sad, and they meet their, you know, twin flame or their, you know, soul partner. But if you would have gone out with them, they would have been fully focused on you, talking to you, and none of that ever would have happened because you didn't listen to your voice.
Exactly. A lot of times, maybe when we think about, should I do this or that? And we can really trust, as you said, on the gut feeling, on the heart, on the soul call, or on the impulse, however it is, and just relax that everything will be fine. And maybe, as you said, also a year later, because we suddenly see, that's why if I'd done this and that, maybe this and that wouldn't have happened. So in my life, there's a lot of situations where maybe there was an odd thing, but I had this call and I did something, or I had a dream. I knew this dream is very important, but I didn't know exactly what the meaning should be. But now I understand.
Yeah.
But to trust that feeling or to trust that impulse, that is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and in the beginning, and that's also something I work through with a lot of people. In the beginning, it takes, coming back to courage, it takes courage to start listening, to start saying no to the outside world when something doesn't feel right, even though the outside world wants that, right? And I have even a lot of examples, for example, even in business, in the business world, right? With managers or directors or whatever, different people in the business world, and then, you know, starting a new job and being like, oh, I have to work this much. I have to always be available on my phone. I have to this, and that. And then I asked them, well, how is that feeling to you? Well, horrible. And I'm like, well, so why are you doing it? You know, if you set those boundaries from the beginning, of course, sometimes we have to later establish them because there is no beginning and maybe what we're doing. But if you set those boundaries and you stick to your boundaries, people will learn to honor you for what you are giving them, right? For the time that you are. It's like the same thing. For example, I have so much I can give, right? And when I'm there, I give everything, right? Everything that's there, I assist people and I'm fully there, but I need my time to regenerate. I need my time to plug in, and recharge and all of that. And in a retreat, in a seminar, or even like in a everyday life, if I give more than I'm capable of, if I give more than what feels good, that person actually doesn't really have anything from it. Like I'm not going to support that person by doing it because I'm not giving it all, right? I'm not, it's so by setting those boundaries, in the end, we're supporting everything, right?
Yes.
Only by being our brightest light, only by being our highest vibration, again, I'm coming back to that, are we actually in service and supporting the world? Because if our light dims, and we're like only half happy, or we're only half at half light, we're actually lowering the vibration of the world again, right? We're not supporting it through it.
Yes, and still, if to some people it happens, or they shouldn't feel guilty, because some people, they maybe think it's not that we are going with the finger to them and say, you're a bad person. No, nobody is bad. Nobody is whatever. It's just we can learn, and we shouldn't feel guilty, but we should feel what, or we acknowledge what is right for the moment and go with the flow. And yes, don't be in the victim mode. We had that before as well. People who say, no, but I have this and that, and then my partner, and my job, and my dog, and my garden, and my house, and there are hundreds of things. That's the ego. And I understand those people because they think maybe they are engaged with their company, whatever, or engaged with their house. But it's possible to change something, and then to make that step, one step after the other, and see suddenly that we are capable of doing such a good thing to ourselves, and as you said, to the world, even though some places or some people they need to be left behind. That's the life.
Yeah. No, I mean, like every single one of them, like in the end, when we do set those boundaries, people start respecting us for those boundaries. Maybe in the beginning, maybe they're like upset or whatever. Yes. But in the end, when they see what we give during the time that we're there, like again, what I just mentioned before, even managers and directors, yes, in the beginning they were like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, oh no, this or that, and like you said, all these things in the outside world, but they did it. We were working together, they did it, and then they came back and they're like, hey, wow, like they're highly esteemed, they're all of this stuff, and people look up to them and they honor them for those boundaries. The issue, of course, is always also if you always just give, right? And then maybe you don't have anything to give anymore because you've depleted yourself. What's going to happen? They're going to be like, yeah, don't worry. Of course you depleted yourself, take your time. No, because you never set boundaries. It's the first time. And then they're going to be like, why aren't you giving anymore? All of that type of stuff, right? So you rather set those boundaries, healthy boundaries in the beginning, even though it takes courage. I know, I went through it too. It wasn't easy. But set those healthy boundaries, and then and then you can keep up with that, right? And it feels good. And again, I have moments where maybe I forgot to set boundaries or whatever. Like you said, it's not about beating ourselves up for it. It's just about doing the best we can, right?
Yes, and then be proud of it. As you said, being the best we can. And a lot of times, 2 years in the future, probably, if we look back, then you think, oh wow, I've gone really far. And if we look at it, even people probably think, no, I haven't changed, everything is the same. But if you really go deep within yourself, probably a lot of people would even realize, oh yes, I changed something for the better, or we can know that in a few weeks, a few months, we can make big changes, and it's the first step. And sometimes people are afraid because they think, I need to do such a big step or whatever. But as you said, we can invite easiness to our life. We can invite positivity in our life, and then the universe will support us. If we think life is hard, then we shouldn't be surprised if the life is really hard. I mean, it's not that there are no challenges anymore, but if we invite easiness, we start to see opportunities which takes us step by step on a easier way to the way, or to the point we should go. It's to change the perspective and invite all the good energies.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And look for, you know, like what you said with victimhood, right? Like step out of that and look for what is soft in your life, what is nice, what you can be grateful for, right? Raise your vibration through that first. Our first step, in my belief, in my opinion, the first step always needs to be raise your vibration, always. Right? Get into a higher vibration. How do we do that? Right? Gratitude is an amazing place to go to. And then look for that, right? If we go outside and all we do is stare at the concrete on the floor, what are we going to see? What are we going to experience? Well, probably nothing aside from concrete. But if we look up and we look at the beautiful flowers, the cute birds, the sky, and be excited about it, then more of that will come.
Yes, and it was always there, but we haven't seen it. That's like if you go with that view, it's what you see, and that's what, as you said, raising the vibration. Then we start to see the world differently, and we start to change our life.
Definitely.
And for me, as I mentioned before, if we take away all the layers, shift by shift, step by step, from belief systems and unresolved happenings, traumas, and so on, from our energy field, and then suddenly the courage is always there, the faith is always there. And if we take the things away which prevents us from the thing we are, then it's also one thing we can do. If we allow us to heal, and if we are ready, if we are open, then we will attract the right places, the right people, the right institutions and videos and music and whatever, which will support us. But we need to be ready or open. And if we're closed, it maybe knocks on the door, but we don't hear it, but we don't give space. So we need to be open and still set boundaries if necessary. It's not to be open doesn't mean if we allow everything into our life, but it's the frequency, and then decide what feels good and what will we not have in our life. It's both. It's like yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine energy, the acceptance and the openness, and then to set boundaries and set the line and set the point. That's it.
Definitely. 100%. So beautifully said.
Do you have like a final message for today about the theme of the courage, which you would like to give to our listeners and followers?
So if you feel scared of something, and I'm not saying like scared of fire, which we don't need to be scared of fire. We just know fire burns, right? We don't need to touch the stove to be scared of fire. We know we're going to burn ourselves. But if you feel like something scares you, sit down and clear that fear, right? It's a really good place to start at, and then clear what's showing up and then do it. This takes work. Neither you nor me are sitting here every day and it's always red roses and violets and butterflies. we do the work. I mean, we have those moments too, of course.
Yeah.
But it also takes when shit shows up, pardon my French, we do sit down and we look at that, right? And we clear it. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours. I mean, sometimes maybe it is, right? But it's taking the time to clear what shows up and then having that courage. One of my favorite analogies, actually, and then this is years ago that when you're on a trapeze, if you like, let's say you're on a trapeze and you're swinging, right? You're
trapeze, yes.
And you're swinging and it's nice and la la la. And at one point you realize, this seems very, always the same, right? I need change. I need to move. And then suddenly you see the other one, right? That's there. And you're like, oh no, I'm scared, right? There's that moment of I have to jump, I could fall, I could drop, I could die, whatever, right?
You have to leave that.
Yes.
Place, yes.
Exactly. You have to let go at one point. But first, all these fears show up, and then you look at those fears and you're still swinging. And at one point you decide, okay, this is the right moment, right? You cleared all the fears, right moment. And then you jump, right? You let go. Important to first let go, and then you jump. That moment when you're in the air, right? It might be super scary because you're not sure if you're going to make it. But there's a million opportunities in that moment, a million possibilities that could happen. I mean, technically, maybe you could sprout wings and fly, or maybe something's going to grab you and fly with you, or maybe you're going to do a super cool flip and then you're going to be super successful, whatever, right? There's a million possibilities in that moment. Yes, it's scary. I know, but everything's open. And then you hold on to the next, and you made it, and it's super cool, and you're swinging, That's courage.
Such a nice little story. Yes. And that's also to maybe to realize or to remember situations from the past when we know, yes, I did things, I changed things, and it worked out well, or it needed courage, but I succeeded. And to remember that and take it as a source. And I'm sure every person finds a source or finds it's like an anchor which we can grab and remember that we succeeded. So, and yes, I mean, at the end, it's also that we believe in ourselves, and that you who are watching or listening, that you believe in yourself.
Definitely.
Okay, so nice. Okay, I think for today we're at the end of this video, and I'm very happy again for this nice and inspirational exchange. Thank you very much, Nicky.
Thank you as well, Monika, and thank you to everybody that's watching this. And also, I would ask that you maybe subscribe so that more people would see these videos and they can profit from it. That also assists not only us, but also more people. So that was always something to kindly ask.
Oh, yeah, thank you to remind that. And also, of course, if you want to forward the video, the link, or our websites, which are then listed below in the description, we are very thankful. Okay, thank you very much, and see you next time. Okay, bye.